Now, the classic passage on wisdom and relationships is in the book of James, chapter 3, verses 13 to 18. Let me read it to you. The Bible says this: if you are wise and you understand God's ways, you'll live a life of steady goodness so that only good deeds pour forth. And if you don't brag about the good you do, then you will be truly wise. But if you are bitterly jealous and there's selfish ambition in your heart, don't brag about being wise. That's the worst kind of lie. For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly and unspiritual and motivated by the devil. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder. Now, wisdom, the kind of wisdom that comes from heaven, is first of all pure. It's also peace-loving, gentle at all times, willing to yield to others. It's full of mercy and good deeds. It shows no partiality, and it's always sincere. Now, those who are peacemakers, he's talking about in relationships, those who are peacemakers plant seeds of peace, and they reap a harvest of goodness. In verse 18, it says, those who are peacemakers plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of goodness. Every day, in every relationship, you are planting seeds. Let's say it again. Every day, in every relationship, you are planting seeds, and you're going to reap what you sow. Now, you're planting either seeds of trust or distrust. You're planting seeds of anger or peace. You're planting seeds of love or harmony. You're planting seeds in every relationship in your life every single day. The question is, what kinds of seeds? How do I plant seeds of peace? And the answer is, I got to be wise. I've got to be wise. I've got to do it the wise way. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to look at this passage because it teaches us the 6 things that wise people never do in relationships. And I've done every one of them. And so have you. And they are foolish approaches to your relationships. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your friends, your boss, your employees, the neighbors. These are 6 things that wise people never do. And in verse 17, James gives us a checklist. These are the foundations of healthy relationships. Now, in the future series, weeks, we're going to look at the crazy makers in your life, how to diffuse, deflect, and defend yourself against the crazy makers. But in any relationship, half the problem is you. It's how you respond. And when you respond incorrectly to the crazy makers in your life, you actually make it worse. So let's get right into it. Foundations of healthy relationships. 6 things wise people will never do in relationships. Number 1, first the Bible says that wisdom, if I want to be wise, wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure. Now circle that word pure. What's he mean by this word pure? It means uncorrupted, clean, unpolluted, clear, untainted. What's he talking about? The word we use today is the word integrity. He's talking about integrity. And he's saying the foundation of all good relationships is integrity. Now, why is integrity listed first? Because wisdom starts in the heart, not in the head. And the reason integrity is listed first is this: all relationships are built on trust. No trust, no relationship. And all trust is built on truth. If you don't have truth, you don't have trust. If you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship. The Bible says in Ephesians 4:25, you must stop telling lies. Tell each other the truth, because we all belong to each other in the same body. Now here is the first mark of wisdom. If I want to be wise in my relationships, I won't compromise my integrity. I won't compromise my integrity. I won't violate my conscience. I won't compromise my convictions. I won't live a double life. I won't lie to you. I'll tell you the truth, because trust is built on truth. No truth, no trust. No trust, no relationship. Proverbs 2 verse 7 says this: God grants a treasure of good sense to the godly. He is their shield, protecting those who walk with integrity. And God says, I will be a shield in your life. You need a shield against crazy makers. But he says, you got to walk with integrity if you're going to have my shield in your life. So first, wisdom is pure, and if I want to be wise in my relationships, I won't compromise my integrity. Number two, wisdom is peace-loving. In other words, wise people are peacemakers. They're not troublemakers. Wise people don't carry a chip on their shoulder. Wise people are not always looking for a fight. So here's the second thing. If I want to be wise in my relationships, I won't antagonize your anger. I won't antagonize your anger. In other words, I don't push your hot buttons intentionally. I don't provoke your rage. I don't egg you on. Now, the fact is, if you've been around anybody for any length of time, you pretty soon figure out what irritates them. And you file that back in the back of your mind as tool to use when we get in an argument. It's a weapon of mass destruction. And you know what pushes their button. And you know what just ticks them off. And when you get in an argument and they say something that hurts you, offends you, or slights you in any way, then you pull out the big gun, you use the weapon of mass destruction, you push their hot button, and you go, and they go, and you go, works every time. You know what the Bible calls that? Stupid. You're not getting any closer to the resolution. You're not helping the relationship. In fact, you're hurting it. It is not wise. Proverbs 20, verse 3 says this, any fool can start an argument. Any fool can start arguments. The wise thing is to stay out of them. So don't be baited by internet trolls who, they'll say something off the wall and then you get stuck arguing with them online. You don't even care about these people. He says, don't get baited. Don't get baited and don't antagonize people's anger. Proverbs 14:29 says this, a wise man controls his temper. He knows that anger causes mistakes. Have you ever said or done anything stupid out of anger? Yes. Because when you get angry, your intelligence goes out the window. When you get angry, you say and do stupid things that are actually self-defeating. Did you know there's only one letter difference between anger and danger? When you get angry, you are in dangerous territory. You are about to hurt yourself with your own anger. The Bible says, wise man controls his temper. He knows that anger causes mistakes. So if I'm wise, I don't compromise my integrity, and I don't antagonize your anger. Number three, the third thing the Bible says, wisdom is gentle all the time. It's gentle all the time. It is courteous, the Bible says in the Living Bible. The NIV translates it considerate. If I'm wise, I'm always going to be considerate. Philippians 4:5 says this in the Bible. Let everyone see that you are considerate in most of everything you do. Oh, it didn't say that. It says, let everybody see that you are considerate in what? All you do. I don't like that word. I looked it up in the original Greek. It means all. Wait a minute. You mean I have to be considerate when people are inconsiderate to me? Yes. I have to be considerate to clerks who are jerks? Yes. When people are rude to me, I don't get to be rude back? No, not if I'm smart. If I'm foolish, I can get back. But if I want to be wise, if I want to have wisdom, I am always, always, always considerate. I am not allowed to call you names. I am not allowed to be rude to you. I'm not allowed to slur you back. I'm not allowed to get even because that puts me on the same level as you. You see, being considerate means simply mindful of the feelings of others. To be considerate means mindful of the feelings of others. Not the words, but the feeling. And if I'm considerate, even when you blast me, I look beyond and I go, well, now what would cause them to feel that way? And I just let the words roll right past me. And I go, what would cause them to be that uptight, that irritated, that rude? Hurt people always hurt people. Unkind people are those who need your kindness the most. They need massive doses of kindness. When people are rude and unkind, they are screaming to the world, I'm in pain. People who are not in pain are kind. People who are always in pain are unkind and rude. Hurt people hurt people. So you look beyond the words and you look at the feelings. Romans 15:2 says this, we must be considerate. That means mindful of the feelings of others, of the doubts, everybody's got doubts, and the fears, everybody's got fears of others. Let's please the other person, not ourselves, in doing what's good for him and build him up. If you don't get anything else I say, get this today. Feelings are neither right nor wrong. They're just there. Feelings are neither right nor wrong. They're just there. They're not facts, so you don't need to argue it. They're just feelings. And if I feel something, I shouldn't have to defend it. And if you feel something, you shouldn't have to defend it. Somebody should just go, I hear you. And maybe other people feel that way too. What we do is we try to convince people that their feelings are wrong, and you're always going to lose at that one. Number 3, if I want to be wise, I won't minimize your feelings. I don't compromise my integrity. I don't antagonize your anger, push your hot buttons, and I don't minimize your feelings. Wisdom acknowledges your feelings and doesn't diminish them. You see, the typical reaction when we don't feel what other people feel, we do 2 things. Number 1, we belittle them. If you had a brain, you would know that's just not true. And you wouldn't feel that way. We belittle. That doesn't help. And the other thing, this is worse, is we play psychologist. Now, the reason you feel this way is because your father, okay. All right. You know, you are not a psychologist, and you are condescending when you try to tell people why they feel the way they feel. You don't even know why you feel the way you feel. You can't figure out your own motives half the time. Why would you think you could figure out somebody else's? The moment you start judging somebody else's motives, you're playing God, and you're wrong. That's a battle you're going to lose. Don't play psychologist. Proverbs 15:4 says this in the Bible, kind words bring life, but cruel words crush your spirit. The other day, Kay was being interviewed, and they asked her, they said, do you wake up grumpy in the morning? She said, no, I usually let him sleep. She's considerate. She's considerate. She lets me sleep in. Some days I don't believe in God before 11 a.m. Number 4, wisdom is willing to yield to others. Pastor Tom is going to come and teach us on this 4th mark of wisdom.
Now, if I asked you, are you a reasonable person? I think most of us would say, yes, I'm reasonable. Let me ask you, how do you know you're reasonable? Because think about this. If you were unreasonable, you wouldn't know you were unreasonable because you were unreasonable. So how do you know if you're really a reasonable person? One of the ways that you know is, do you listen to others? Let me tell you one of the main ways you know if you're a reasonable person. Can people you disagree with reason with you? If you have people in your life, you disagree with them, but they can reason with you. You can talk through it. That's one of the ways that you know that you're a reasonable person. But a lot of us, we have this attitude, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind is made up. When I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. We have this kind of an attitude. And so because of that, we're not wise in relationships. And because of that, we all struggle with this. We have this oversensitivity when it comes to talking to other people with other people's suggestions. Because it's tough. Let's just admit it. It is tough to hear the suggestions of other people. You have to put yourself out there. Like that new pastor who said to his church, first sermon he was preaching, and he said, you know, I really want your honest suggestions afterwards. So after the message, he was talking to one of the men in the church, and he said, okay, give me your honest suggestions. And the guy said, well, honestly, Pastor, that sermon stunk. And the guy looked at him and said, he was trying to be reasonable. He said, well, okay, what exactly stunk about it? He really wanted to hear. And he said, well, there were 3 things that stunk about it. First, you read it. Second, you read it poorly. And third, it wasn't worth reading in the first place. Now, the next guy that came to talk to the pastor was trying to encourage him and said, don't worry about old Jim. He just repeats what everybody else says. So don't worry about that at all. The tough thing about listening to other people and hearing their suggestions is you got to put yourself out there. And it can hurt sometimes. But if you're going to be wise, in fact, write this in with me. If I want to be wise, I won't criticize your suggestions. I won't criticize your suggestions. A wise person can learn from anybody. Listen, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So people in your life, they're going to be right. And let me tell you something God does in my life, and he's going to do in your life to totally humble you when it comes to listening to other people's suggestions. There are going to be people in your life, the most irritating people in your life, the you drive me crazy kind of people we're talking about. Sometimes they're going to have a good suggestion. That person in your family, that they're wrong about everything else, they're going to be right about something. That person at your office, that person at your school, it's the worst thing in the world when the very person that's driving you crazy has a good suggestion for your life. But let me ask you, can you learn from them? Can you learn from anybody? Look at this next verse in the outline, Proverbs 18:15. Intelligent people are always open to new ideas. In fact, they look for them.
You know, I have spent much of my life hanging out with people I totally disagree with, so I could share the love of Jesus with them and help them come to know Christ, which means I've heard a lot of stupid ideas. I've sat in groups of people who share me stuff that's the most off-the-wall, crazy idea. What do? You just smile and you nod and you don't interrupt and you let them say their entire piece. Because what I've learned is if you let people say their entire piece, they'll let you say your entire piece. And then I can come back and say, well, here's what I think, here's what I believe, here's what the Bible says. And people go, oh, well, that makes sense. I never thought about it that way. But if you try to interrupt them in advance, you try to take them down point by point, you are being a fool. It is foolish to try to take people down point by point. You just make them mad. As Tom said, you just got to listen. You got to be open to reason. Now, number 5, the Bible says wisdom is full of mercy and good deeds. Circle that word mercy. If I'm going to be wise, I'm going to maximize mercy. I'm going to major on mercy in my relationships, full of mercy and good deeds. In other words, it's wise to show grace to people when they mess up, when they blow it, when they sin, when they fumble, when they flub up, when they have faults, when they fail. It's wise to show mercy when people show up. It's wise to cut people slack when they mess up. Let's just take it this way. Who is the wisest person in the universe? God. Who is the most merciful person in the universe? God. You think there's any little connection there? Yes. Fools are judgmental. Wise people are merciful. Anytime I start judging you, I'm being foolish. Anytime I'm being merciful, I'm being like God. And that's wise. It's wise to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's wise to show grace, to show mercy, to be forgiving, to cut people some slack. God cuts me slack all the time, so I better cut it to somebody else. So here's the 5th mark of wisdom in a relationship. If I want to be wise, I won't emphasize your mistakes because I am merciful. Wise people don't rub it in. Wise people rub it out. Wise people are merciful. So let me ask you, how high do you rate on mercy? Do you jump on every fault or blunder? Great move, Klutzo. You're always picking at people, always pointing out their errors and mistakes. Do you continually bring up the past? And every little sin that your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or whoever has done, you file it back so you can pull it out when you need to get a little leverage? The Bible says in Proverbs 17:9, love forgets mistakes. Nagging about them parts the best of friends. Now think of the person who's closest to you in your life. Right now, okay. Think of the person who's closest to you in your life. And even though you love them, there's some things they do that just flat out bug you. I mean, it really bugs you. You know those things that really get you going? Let it go. Let it go. It is foolish to hold on to it. Let it go. There's so many things to love about him. Let it go. You're not God. Last week, I saw Mike and Sally Kendall out here on the campus. Mike has been on staff in facilities for many, many years. And I happen to know that Sally and Mike had just had their 50th wedding anniversary. And Mike had kissed Sally, and she was getting ready to drive off. And I walked over to Sally's car. She rolled the window down, and I said, "Congratulations, Sally, on 50 years of marriage." I said, "What is the secret of a 50-year lasting marriage?" She looked at me and said, "Pastor, I never tried to change him." And she drove off, and I'm not making this up. This is the exact truth, and they had not colluded on this. I walked up to Mike, who was further on up the way, and I said, "Mike, congratulations on 50 years of marriage." I said, "What's the secret of 50 years of marriage?" He said, "I never tried to change her." They had both said the exact same thing. Wisdom is full of mercy. Number 6, the Bible says that wisdom is impartial and always sincere. It means you're genuine, you're without hypocrisy, you're the real deal. The word we would use today is the word authentic. Authentic. Now, here's the 6th key. If I want to be wise in my relationships, I won't disguise my intentions. If I'm honest, if I'm real, if I'm wise,